Netflix was once the poster child for innovation and change and disrupting an entire industry, putting giant corporations like Blockbuster completely out of business and revolutionizing the way that society consumes media. Not to mention spawning an entirely new vocabulary and culture around streaming media services by allowing people to choose what they want to watch when they want to watch it, and creating entirely new viewing habits around binging entire seasons, something previously reserved only for the most die-hard fans of a series, who were able to get their hands on a box set of DVDs of previous seasons of their favorite shows. But recently, things have changed, and the former streaming star seems to have fallen hard, losing subscribers, suffering crushing blows to its stock price, and even being sued by its shareholders for failing to disclose just how bad things really were. Netflix stock price fell 35% in a single day after they reported that they'd lost subscribers for the first time in 10 years. This in turn led to a wave of downgrades from Wall Street over concerns and fears about what might happen to the company in the future, which caused Netflix to shave more than $60 billion off its market cap, making it the worst performing stock of 2022, down 62% year to date. And being accused of securities fraud for missing your growth target, it's no small thing either. So what went wrong? And what can Netflix do to crawl its way back up to the top of the streaming charts? Or is all hope lost, and it's time for the next evolution of streaming services and entertainment to take over? Well, the answers to those questions can only be found in what they do, and not just what they say, because Netflix seems to have a whole lot to say about why things went so wrong for them. According to CNBC, Netflix has said that one of the issues that's affecting their growth is the lifting of pandemic restrictions. It's no surprise that Netflix benefited heavily from stay-at-home orders, with more people turning to digital entertainment for distractions. But in recent months, as restrictions have been lifted, people are spending, obviously, less time on digital platforms. The problem with this excuse, though, is that other competitive streaming services, like Roku for example, still managed to add 1.2 million subscribers in the first quarter, unlike Netflix, who lost 200,000. Inflation is another factor Netflix blames, as is the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which cost Netflix 700,000 subscribers. But the real killer appears to be a combination of competition combined with a lack of innovation from Netflix. In other words, with so many different choices to choose from Disney Plus to Amazon Prime to HBO Max to Hulu, Netflix is no longer the only option. In fact, depending on the kind of content that you like and the shows that you want to watch, it may not even be the best option. And to make things worse, it's not even the cheapest option. In fact, as this article from Business Insider shows, when compared to other streaming services, Netflix is the most expensive option, with Apple TV right there at the bottom and then working our way up through Disney and then Prime and then HBO Max and then Netflix. And this is before Netflix starts cracking down and charging more for password sharing among different households. So while Netflix was once the leader in the streaming space, they appear to be making many of the same mistakes that Blockbuster made that left the door wide open for Netflix to come in the first place. Things like being slow to adapt to changing consumer behavior trends, failing to acknowledge a business model that just isn't working that well for them anymore, and a certain level of arrogance that just because they were once the biggest player in town, that they don't have to worry about competitors coming in, gobbling up their market share and eating their lunch. But they do need to worry, and maybe even panic a little bit. Not a lot, but enough to make them finally want to try something new. Actually, scratch that. They don't even need to try something new. All they need to do is copy what their competitors are doing that's already working. Which leads me to this. After years of resisting, opposing, and even denying the power and profitability of advertising, Netflix is now open to exploring lower-priced ad-supported plans, finally learning a lesson and taking a page from its fellow FANG stock members' playbook. After all, compared to Facebook, now Meta, Google, under the parent company Alphabet, and Amazon, Netflix share performance over the past 3 years is the lowest of the bunch, which is a clear sign that adding advertising to your platform is a very profitable move. After all, last year alone, Facebook made $114 billion on advertising. Google made $209 billion, and Amazon $31 billion. Meanwhile, Netflix revenue last year was $30 billion. A big number for sure, but still smaller than Facebook, Google, and Amazon. And let's be honest, this year's off to a pretty rough start. So here's what this looks like in practice. What it means for Netflix, what it means for users, as well as for advertisers and businesses who are able to get in early and capture that first mover advantage. The CEO of Netflix, Reed Hastings, has long been opposed to adding commercials or other promotions to the platform, but said during the company's pre-recorded earnings conference call that it makes a lot of sense to offer customers a cheaper option. Here's what he had to say. Those who have followed Netflix know that I have been against the complexity of advertising and a big fan of the simplicity of subscription. But as much as I am a fan of that, I am a bigger fan of consumer choice and allowing consumers who would like to have a lower price and are advertising tolerant to get what they want makes a lot of sense. But where things get really interesting is when he uses the term advertising tolerant to talk about the people who would rather pay less and sit through a few ads. Because as annoying as most people claim that advertising is, contrary to popular opinion, people don't actually mind ads all that much. At least when the alternatives are to pay more for something simply to avoid seeing ads. Hub Entertainment Research reports that nearly 2/3 or 67% of people said they would choose ad-supported TV over a paid ad-free subscription service. Hub writes that for years it's been assumed that ad avoidance has been a major driver of the shift from pay TV to streaming. But as viewers stack more paid subscriptions, the cost of ad-free viewing is rising. This steady stacking of more and more subscriptions to your monthly bill leads to a condition known as subscription fatigue. And seeing as a total of 85% of US households have at least one subscription service, it's unsurprising that eventually there's going to be some kind of cost-benefit conversation where people start to ask themselves, is this really worth it? And at least when it came to Netflix this year, over 200,000 people said no. And it looks like the next quarter is gonna be a whole lot worse. Like, much worse, with Netflix estimating it's going to lose another 2 million subscribers over the next few months. As ugly as this is for Netflix though, it does help to explain why ad-supported streaming has been growing faster than paid streaming services. After all, it's clearly what the market wants. For a practical example of this, we can look right here at YouTube, which last year had 23.6 YouTube Premium members, which is YouTube's ad-free streaming service that allows you to watch YouTube videos without pre-roll or mid-roll ads. And while 23.6 million people may sound like a lot, it's nothing when compared to the fact that last year there was 1.86 billion people on the platform. This means that of everybody who visited YouTube, only 1.26% of people chose to pay in order to not watch ads. Or put the other way, 98.74% of people would rather watch free content with ads. A clear indication that given the choice between sitting through a few ads or spending a few bucks extra each month for an ad-free experience, most people, like almost 99% of them, well, just sit through the ads. And as Facebook, Amazon, and Google will tell you, there is a lot of money to be made in advertising. According to Statista, the traditional TV advertising market is worth around $60 billion in the US alone. But here's the thing, 46% of TV watching is now on streaming. But only 18% of TV advertising budgets have been transitioned over to streaming platforms. In other words, there's a huge gap between what people are actually watching and where advertisers are spending their money. And gaps like this represent enormous opportunities. There's no question that streaming services are soon going to look like social media today, with a combination of both content and advertising. The only question is when it's going to happen. For an example and a case study of a business that got their marketing and their overall business strategy right though, you definitely want to take a look at Tesla. This is why I've linked up a video right here on Tesla's genius marketing strategy and exactly what they did to succeed. So make sure to check that out now, and I'll see you in the next video. You see, under the marketing umbrella, you also have a ton of other things like content marketing and social media marketing and public relations, many more. All of these are marketing tools that Tesla uses, and all of them